Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Breakfast Connection Africa Business Radio. We're getting into News Express, exclusively brought to you by Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. My name is Rachel. Very interesting headlines in the pages of Business AM this morning. I'll take you through the cover page headlines, and then we'll take it from there with the publisher, Business AM, Mr. Philip Isakwa, much later. Top in the front page this morning, AfDB's Adesina holds Global North to account over $100 billion Africa climate change pledge. UN Secretary General says Africa is continent sleepwalking to disaster. All right. Calls for coalition of solidarity to address inequality, instability, climate change. Now, that's the very first headline on Business AM this morning. We will talk about this one. But moving on, Nigeria's mining sector in crisis. $9 billion lost to illegal miners yearly. Foreigners, especially Chinese, big culprits. Some private jets airlift minerals out of the country. Politicians collaborate with illegal miners. Details right here on the cover page. In the summary section, page 5, Nigeria's tourism potentials huge. Find that one on page 5 of the paper. On page 11, we have the $900 billion debt capital shakeout. What's that about? Get the detail, page 11. Moving on to the energy, power and renewable section, NLNG supplies domestic gas 2022. And I'll just rush through to the commodities and agri section where we have agro-industrials opportunities. Find out what's that about that on pages 24 of Business AM. I'd like to bring in the publisher, Business AM, to give us more insight into the headlines for the week. Good morning, Mr. Philip. It's great to have you on the show. How was your weekend?
Good morning. Good morning, Rachel. It's good to be back here again. Weekend was good. I hope yours was good as well. Nice weather over here. Thank you.
All right, it's good to have you on the show again. And yes, I am great. My weekend was really good. Let's jump on the first headline on the cover page, talking about AfDB's Adesina and the Global North to account over $100 billion Africa climate change. Now, Adesina has reminded developed countries to deliver on their promise of $100 billion per year for climate change in Africa. And of course, this is in view of the urgent need to finance climate adoption on the continent. Now, he made this comment a day after Antonio Guterres, that's the UN Secretary General, made his keynote address to the UNGA, a speech in which the UN chief said Africa is a continent sleepwalking to disaster. What do you think about the statement, Mr. Philip?
Rachel, this has been trending for some time. You know, the $100 billion we're talking about was a pledge made by Global North. Global North will mean rich developed countries in the West. Right. You know, pledging to support climate change activities in Africa. Now, what's going on here? So there's a global problem, you know, that is now linked to what has been buzzing concerning climate change in the world. Now, the argument has been that the rich developed countries who contribute largely to the global warming, you know, are now asking everybody in the world, you know, to contribute to ensuring that this problem is reduced. Now, Africa is still a virgin continent with regards to that in terms of its contribution to global warming and global change activities, you know. So in order to get them, and then you still need Africa to develop, you know, all the activities that resulted in this global warming that we are talking about are what contributed to the development in the West, you know, in the rich and developed countries, you know. So if you say don't use fossil fuel anymore, you know, fossil fuel is contributed to the development in the West and in the global North and most of the rich countries of the world. Now you are asking Africa not to move away from fossil fuel, you know, and In order to do that, they need financing to be able to live through the changes that you're asking about, asking for. Now, as a result of that, the global north, the West, rich developed countries now said, okay, we will support. We make a pledge of $100 billion yearly, to support the activities that will lead Africa to slowing down on the use of fossil fuel and other climate changing things like cutting down of trees, firewood, and the rest of them that are used in many places. But this pledge that was made hasn't been, followed through by the West, by the global North, being able to deliver on the pledges. So this is what Adesina, was talking about, and Guterres talking about sleepwalking. Of course, when sleepwalking simply meant that nothing is happening or things are not happening the way they should happen, with regards to climate change in Africa. So if we are sleepwalking, Adesina is saying, reminding them that, we are sleepwalking because the pledges that you made, haven't been fulfilled. You have not fulfilled your pledges. The $100 billion you pledged to put down every year, to ensure that Africa, comes on board, in terms of the activities that need to be carried out, you have not done.
Right.
So this is a reminder. He's done this reminder quite a lot of times, not just at the UNGA. He did it, I think, sometime earlier in the year. He kept, he has continuously reminded them. I think the pledge was made, maybe was it last year, 2020 or 2019. And they have not delivered on this. And this is really, really important. That for Africa to come fully on board this climate change, climate adaptation or adapt, will need financing, and that finance is huge, and Africa doesn't have the money, to do that, so that's why this pledge came about, and unfortunately, this pledge has not been delivered, or it's not been delivered as promised, and again, if you go to the G, whether you call it G7 or G8 or G20 meetings, the rich developed countries, always go to those meetings and then make all sorts of pledges. And unfortunately, they talk and nothing seems to happen in terms of action. Action to avoid the worst impact of the climate disaster must start with developed countries making true on their commitment of new, additional, and predictable climate finance from a floor of $100 billion per year. That's the statement from Adesina, talking to the world, especially rich developed countries, with regards to this matter.
Right. Okay, let's see how that goes now. Let's move to the second headline on the cover page, talking about Nigeria's mining sector losing about $9 billion yearly. And when I look at this, of course, we're well aware that this is a sector that is not really, fully tapped into. It's confirmed that Nigeria as a country is endowed with over 34 different solid minerals, precious metals. We have them in commercial quantities in more than 500 locations across, the various regions of the country. And then we're not tapping into this. And then looking further into this story here, we can see that it disclosed that some of the illegal mining activities were promoted by collaborations between politically connected Nigerians and some foreign corporations, notably from China. So, Mr. Philip, we know who is causing what at this point. What are we waiting for? I mean, we need policies, don't we, to stop all of this and fully harness this sector?
You need policies, you need political will, you need seriousness on the part of government. Rachel, we have said this many times, we said it many times here, that there's a problem with the concept of laziness, Once crude oil was discovered, and then you had what's it called, international oil companies coming in with all their technology and all their equipment and drilling oil, and then we sat back and we collected the taxes and the revenues that came from it. We were comfortable. We've been So we've been comfortable for such a long time that we forgot. First of all, it was agriculture that was neglected. Agriculture that helped to build the East. When we talk about the regional government of pre and post-independence, the East, the West, and then the North. Agriculture was the mainstay of those economies, and we found oil, and then agriculture was abandoned. Now, nobody even talked about solid minerals. Solid minerals, we began to talk about solid minerals maybe perhaps in the last 10, 15, 20 years, And there hasn't been a concerted effort to say, this is a rich area for revenue generation, for Nigeria to tap fully into it. So there hasn't been proper policy, there haven't been proper policies to address how that sector needs to work. So there's a lot of confusion. The people who are in the sector are mainly private. Of course, private people go in, but we talk about private in the sense of individuals, who come from different parts of the world. The Chinese are there, across West Africa. You have some. Across Africa, you have people who have come, from, So you have, because it is not, there isn't a clear-cut, arrangement, about how to really pursue this. I recall that some years ago there was an attempt to try to woo what's it called, the big mining corporations. So I think there was a delegation during the Obasanjo regime, to go to Australia to bring all the big Australian companies. I think there's one doing gold mining in, I think, Ondo, but it's still not been. They've not been able to harness this. And then again, you have compromises, like we talk about politicians collaborating with illegal miners.
Right.
Everybody is in on it. So you have these collaborators working with politicians, providing cover, for these illegal miners. And then you have, what we found was that there was a research actually, that talked about private jets being used to lift. I guess you would have seen on social media, some jets flying, taking off from the zones in Zamfara, Katsina, taking off, they come in, and people are in these mining fields, and there isn't a particular security system, to really provide some organizational structure,
yes,
in terms of how this thing is done. I think largely is this organizational structure, just like you want to go into manufacturing, the typical things to do, so it's been left as if government is not bothered. I think that's because there isn't a clear-cut way of seeing the money that will come in, from that sector. So there's hard work to be done, and policy people, in government tend to, not just policy people, but the hard work that you need to do, seem to be avoided by everybody, because until they begin to see the money come in, they tend not to really focus on it. And that's the challenge that we have with regards to this sector.
Yes.
So that's why you have a lot of illegal miners, who are going all over the place, and nobody's there's cover provided by some politicians, and that's how it is, so collaborators, internal collaborators working with these illegal miners, going into the mining fields, and mining gold. They said they moved gold from Nigeria, to Dubai as if it belongs to, it's a private property, and that is where the challenge is. So Rachel, there is a clear-cut policy arrangement, organizational arrangement. We just had the passage and the signing into law of the Petroleum Industry Act, And so you see that sector is well organized, is well organized, given, if you go into history, they'll tell you that a number of years was spent, in illegal oil activities, oil drilling activities before there was an organized organization around it, organized structure behind crude oil exploration. Now you have a sector that is, because the money is coming, you can clearly see how the money is coming. You can just sit down and the money is coming. Now there's hard work to be done. In terms of policy arrangement, in terms of organizational structure, to move this sector forward, let us know who are the miners and get real miners across the world. In Ghana, you have the gold corporation working effectively, and that's a serious issue that needs to be looked into, because we're talking about trillions of dollars, the potentials, from that sector. And the work needs to be put in for this money to come into the treasury.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Philip, because investors, they are looking at how organized this sector is. They're looking at the safety in that sector before they put their money in it. So yes, I think that's the key.
Exactly.
It needs to be a lot more organized to attract investment. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. We're going to have to wrap it up at this point and see how all of the stories develop. We have a lot of other very interesting stories on Business AM this week. Readers, please explore. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. We'll catch up later.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rachel.
All right, and that was Philip Isakwa, the publisher, Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. Cryptocurrency updates coming your way in just a moment. Stay here.